people that just ask me like, oh, like, explain to me a little bit, like, I'm just curious. And then there's the other ones that for some reason are mad that I have like a belief in a higher power, and like
health professional, academic community, Asian community. So I belong to a smiley community. So I think that's where a lot of my culture does come from. Maybe American culture, and maybe even like a 21st generation, right? Like democratic.
Christianity, I think, is like the biggest umbrella of that culture. And then you mix a little bit of Romanian and a little bit of American culture in there. That's what I would say. All three of those have a really strong focus of community, like helping everyone out around you, and
like learning Garba or Sufi dance or Gujarati dance from different aspects of the world. Those are traditions that like different forms of art, expressions of dances as well. So with stories, I was able to embrace my tradition and cultures and voice them in expressions of art. I kind of try to grasp certain values or traditions from each subgroup, I'd like to call them, of cultures that I belong to, and embrace them into my daily life. I like it when people ask me questions because I can like explain it. So it makes me proud to be able to share it with others.
Romanian Christian culture is very like hospitable. Like, I will be offended if somebody leaves my house hungry. Like, you're not allowed to do that. I need to make sure that you're fed, that you feel loved, that, you know, you matter to all of us, and that every person feels important and special. And as soon as you have that love in your family and that really strong circle of support, then you can help more people that way. I feel like it gives you like a stepping stone to help other people.
Eating with our hands, that might not be a normal thing for other cultures to be comfortable with. So I think that's different. But maybe some similarities in other Asian cultures, like Korean cultures or Japanese, they sometimes eat with their hands as well. Within my own culture, I think, like for me, I think I would give more emphasis on dance, and, you know, that being a very important, valuable thing of my tradition.
But one of them is just how family-centered my Romanian culture is versus American culture is a lot more like chosen family. And you kind of leave the nest, and, you know, you make your own way, and then you kind of visit your parents maybe once a year, twice a year. But at least in Romanian culture, a lot of the kids will stay pretty close by, even for college. Because I guess in Romanian culture, like, a lot of the kids will stay with their parents until they're married. And then when your parents get older, they don't go to a nursing home. That's very looked down upon. Like, you welcome them into your home. Then they help raise your kids. You know, you don't need a babysitter. You got grandma right there.
But certain questions are difficult to answer, right? So like, why can't you hang out on a Friday? Like, why is Friday Kani so important? Like, why is Juma? Like, it's difficult to communicate why these certain values are important to us. Okay, if someone asks you why Friday Kani is so important, why you cannot hang out on Friday and, you know, go to a football game, you say, because this prayer is important to my family, and, you know, you try to explain it in a way for them to understand in the future. So it can become difficult to balance in that sense. But in that sense, if you're communicating with those members, and I also try to communicate with my parents on the other hand, like, look, like, I did just go to Friday Kane, like, maybe do you think if I skip REC this one Saturday, like, I can go to dance practice or something, you know, like, you have to kind of balance it out in that way and like sacrifice the give and take of that. If you deviate from certain thoughts or customs, you're kind of frowned upon or looked upon as not proper or out of the norm, I'd like to say. So I'm not saying if you don't value service or if you don't value religion, you know, you're a bad person. It's totally fine of what you value. But when it becomes so instilled with you from the start, from like ECDC primary education, giving back, sharing, and I think they're great values to instill with children. from the start. When you kind of stray away from like, oh, I wouldn't want to like give service, or I wouldn't want to help others, it kind of just feels weird in my ass. It doesn't feel normal because it's just been engraved with me. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing me.
Like 3 or 4 times this week already, like people have like either told me like, oh, like why do you even bother believing in Jesus? Like he was such an old guy, that was so long ago. Or like they'll try to just argue with me on every little point. I'm like, why do we have to do this now? Like, you know where I stand, and no matter what little pinpoint of contradiction you have that I don't really care about is not going to change how I feel and like what I've experienced in my life. Especially when it comes to my traditional, more Christian culture, like of Romanian side, then yes, especially like if I try to explain it to someone, then I feel like it does get a little bit more difficult because not everyone quite understands where I'm coming from all the time, more at Case than anywhere else. Because we're like back home in Grand Rapids, it's mostly a Dutch community. In high school, I got a scholarship because I was considered a diverse member of my school. It's not even like, oh, I went to school with a bunch of like white Americans. It's like, no, I went to school with Dutch kids. Like all their grandparents have immigrated from the Netherlands. That is their culture. So I feel like coming to Case, especially like explaining like, okay, if I go to Romanian church, I'm going to be there for like 9 o'clock until 7. We're going to have lunch in between, but I'm going to be there for like the majority of the day. And you have to dress up, and, you know, you have a formal language that you speak with the elders there, especially like how important like Sundays are to me and going to church and making sure that I'm there for all those big events. Yeah. I think there's 2 groups at Case. There's like the agnostic people that just ask me like, oh, like explain to me a little bit, like I'm just curious. And then there's the other ones that for some reason are mad that I have like a belief in a higher power. And like I don't know how to explain this to you in a like a nice way, and that's like from my heart if you just feel the need to attack anything I say.
Thank you for watching ZenGeist Soul Scholars. If you haven't already, please view our intro video to learn more about the intention of our channel. Also, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the more interviews and debriefs to come. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see our weekly self-reflective questions and the topics of new interviews to come. If you would like to become a Soul Scholar and partake in an interview, email us at zengeistofficial@gmail.com.